Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'll just do the Tuesday Club notes first. The Tuesday Club, just to explain those who aren't aware of it. Oh. Yeah, it sounds like I get 15 minutes either side, doesn't it, Madam Mayor? Yeah. Oh, well, I'll start on the... Oh, I see, right. If you've got my submission first, I'm quite happy to do that first. Right, happy? Right, the first one, look, the first comment I want to make is a very brief one, and it was an old board member of City Holdings and I were having a cup of coffee a couple of weeks ago, and we were wondering what methods, and this is just a question, I don't require an answer, but what methods are used to assess whether or not there are new potential monopolies which should be owned by Christchurch City Council and managed by City Holdings. So that's just a question to keep an eye on yeah, okay. So the second point is Yanni raised a question with me last week about, which didn't fit in the EAG report, so I'm now commenting on it. But when you look at what the council is currently spending on Christchurch NZ, and when I look at the performance measures, I think they are quite weak. And I think as a council you need to turn your minds to how do you make them stronger. And I think there's over the years that it's sort of watered down, and what started me being interested in this was I'm involved in a trust that's involved in youth. And when I looked at the fact that Christchurch NZ is not involved in youth employment initiatives at all, and yet we drove youth employment initiatives in Christchurch as a council in my time around the council table. So I think that if you look at the agencies that you are funding, Christchurch NZ, the budget's 14 million. DCL is 4 million. Regenerate Christchurch, you're putting 4 million in. The government's putting money into Regenerate, Otakaro, DPMC. It's real, you know, this council table needs to actually say what's the best way of getting growth in our economy, our place in the world, driving the South Island, playing a key role. And I think that at the moment, my comment about Christchurch NZ is you need to have a hard look at it. There you go. That's 5 minutes.
What part of Christchurch NZ?
The lot. I think at the moment there's far too much focus on the stuff, the marketing stuff, and if you look at the levels of service, specify the levels of service of it, and you look at gross domestic product, average wage, net migration, workforce skills, etc. You're starting to think quite a lot of that's the Chamber of Commerce's role and MB's role, and how can this council, which has always been innovative, actually look at an agency like this, and how could we actually make this the best agency in New Zealand?
Would you say that going back, you know, I first came across CDC when I was a young member of Parliament, and it used to have a contract with central government called Action Works.
Yes.
It was a joint venture with what was prior to the Ministry of Social Development, and that was part of the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, which is an initiative of your own and your leadership role as Mayor. But just after you stopped being Mayor, the results of the re-evaluation of CDC came in, and they got rid of Action Works. They turned it into a trust that actually fell over. So
no, the trust is in abeyance.
Right.
It hasn't, and so the trust is still there. And I discussed with one of the trustees the fact that it needs to be revived, because the beauty.
But why should it be revived as a trust that can't survive the lack of partnership with central government? Why wouldn't it go back into Christchurch NZ?
Oh, I've got no dispute with that at all.
Right, so you think that's a good model?
Oh, yeah. what we did with Action Works is that we set ourselves a target that nobody under the age of 25 was doing nothing, and we were working our way through the ages. We'd got to 19. We had 65 or 64 people under the age of 19 we knew who were unemployed. We knew every single one of them, and we knew why they weren't working, and we were trying to work on getting them there. And it's just a good model.
It's a fantastic
yes, I agree
model.
with
you. Yeah, Yanni. 23 seconds.
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, I had a similar question, but putting the Action Works to one side, it also seemed to me from recollection that CDC was a place where it wasn't just about business. It was a place where anyone in the community would go who wanted to do something and get advice and services to support enterprise, etc. So I just wondered if you had any reflection on that aspect too, given that seems to be one of our focuses through our vision, is a place where anything's possible, and yet one of the key institutions that you're referring to, you've raised the question around whether it's really accessible for people to go and get services rather than just sort of advice.
I always felt as a board member of CDC that it was really important. There's a glamour side to actually looking at big business and trying to attract it to Christchurch and tourism and all that sort of thing. But it's also really important at the other end of the corridor to have those who are actually struggling to get people into work. And to have them up the same corridor is really important, and it embraces the haves and the have-nots. And the Economic Development Agency should always reflect that.
Yeah, back in your day though, CDC didn't cover the tourism side. So we've amalgamated CCT, and we've amalgamated some of the large events that we would run as a city, and we've also amalgamated international education, which they're not currently funded for. So, I mean, there are a number of issues, but I think you've raised a really valid point, which is
I totally support
support
you bringing them together, because I sat on tourism and I couldn't understand why the hell it's just another sector, and it should be treated the same as well.
Absolutely,
so I totally agree with you.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to your Tuesday club, which should be very interesting because we've got a series of 8 headings, but looking forward to the detail.
Some I'll put more emphasis on than others. Just to explain to councillors who aren't aware, Tuesday Club started with a group of us feeling that we needed to promote democracy in our city. Our first project was we responded to the Shipley report on the challenge of the mayor, and Sarah got something like 130 or 140 submissions, and the Tuesday Club got 2,000 submissions from the community. They had a lot of money, we had nothing, so it's an interesting message. So we meet weekly at Smash Palace. We get between 40 and 60 people, or when Raf turned up, we got 70 that night. When the minister turned up, we got 120. It varies hugely. It goes out to I looked up before I came, 627 people, and sometimes emails go all over the place. One email a couple of weeks ago was shared 115 times from somebody at this table. We have a vast array of topics, and these are all people who care about the city. So all we want is to make it a better city. That's our kaupapa. So the first thing I did in preparing for this submission is I looked, because I remember sitting at this council table, and this is one method of receiving submissions, but a really good one is the Residents' General Service Satisfaction Survey, which is a huge survey that you do. I presume you still do it. Do you still do it? Mm. Right, okay. Cool. I couldn't find the results for this year. I found last year, which was out on the 24th of April. I think I just point that out to you. You need to have a hard look at that, because that's got more use to you than probably me sitting at the end of the table. So one of the things that we were concerned about, Raf came along and talked to us about the LTP. We were really interested in it, and when I read it and I look at, for instance, the strategic objectives that you've got as a council, I can't see them on your in your document. When I think about Raf talking about method of consultation that he came out with, which was superb. You know, Vicky with global warming, Leanne with the size of the city and growing to 1.5 million. That's the sort of dream that needs to be up there. It's as dry as rocking horse manure at the moment, the the introduction. It's basically financially focused, and it needs to be a big vision for the city, you know, and that's something that I think is really important. And I think that all the ideas that I talk about here, there's fantastic ideas around this table, and it should reflect your ideas in that introduction and in that document. I don't think it does. The Tuesday Club had a real big interest in water. They felt that there's a need for a different way of consulting on water. It's not just you being driven by your water engineers, it's by you saying, this is our particular focus, we're going to actually get this right. And when you look at sewage going into our rivers, and we're saying, oh, well, that's okay, you know, in big water events. Well, is it? And you look at, focusing in on, say, the Avon and the Heathcote. And when I look at the Heathcote and I think, well, the estuary's risen up, but there's all the amazing scientific knowledge, amazing knowledge around the city, like the yacht club that sails in the estuary, you know, engaging those people. I think you've set a model with the EAG where you brought a group of people in to actually assist you with the process. The Tuesday Club view is that we actually need to do the same thing with water, and that involves coastline, that involves the lakes that are on Banks Peninsula. It's a big issue, and I think people would be pretty pleased to see you doing it. I think we were particularly, we look out the window of the Tuesday Club and we look at the land that's been allocated to Fletcher's, with all the lanes that have been put on there and nothing in its place. And it was a feeling of people there that it was really important that we have a capital sum put aside for the central city. You know, when the city library opens, and people walk out onto a bomb site, that's actually not a good message. And the convention centre will be finished in the next few years, and that's the same. You know, you restore the cathedral, you've actually got to put probably $20 million aside, at least, for the central city to actually do something about that. Regenerator's done a plan for it. Where the hell is it? You know, you should be asking that. You should also, we believe, maybe you need to look at short-term idea. By short-term, I mean sort of 20 to 30 years, use of the land in the central city, so that you have planning opportunities for people to maybe build a building that's got a 30-year lifetime or something. They maintain an office downstairs and live above it, attracting young people from around the world to live here in Christchurch. You know, while the rest of the world's asleep, Christchurch is awake. We could be doing processing and trading, and so that was something that the Tuesday Club felt was really important. And we felt that it was important the council table had a view on what the central city should be and get on and advocate for it. And I just think it's time for us to actually say to a lot of the people that are blocking it, where the hell is it? Investment in the red zone is also same as the central city. Different focus on the treatment of sewage. I would have thought at the time, you know, I know how dangerous it was at the time of the earthquake, having all of our sewage in one place. We played with it in my time, and there was always arguments against it, but I think the council needs to look seriously at different ways of treating. Hmm? I played with sewage. Oh, yeah, sorry. Made a shit of myself. Anyway, now I won't go any further because it's I'll just dive into it. So car parking in Christchurch, you've got fabulous car parking buildings. I use them all the time. I think you need to actually be proud of them and advertise them and say, you know, that people think they're going into the whatever Philip Carter's outfit is, and they think they're going into a council one. I parked there the other day. It's awfully expensive, But the council one, I think you need to really focus in on what's your marketing plan for those units. I use the one across the road here as well, and under the art gallery. They're excellent car parks, and I just think you're hiding your talent under a bushel. Right. That one in the art gallery. Yeah, the art gallery is, but the one over the road. Sorry, the art gallery I was talking about. Sorry. That is across the road, isn't it? No. Now, the next one is, I think it's really important that this council, and I don't know, you could have done this, so this might be, but we were talking about this at the Tuesday Club. The accountability of the negotiations at the moment are really important. That you actually, I've seen around the city, and I've got connections all over the place, so I get all sorts of information. There's a lot of executive conversations taking place. Some of those in various agencies will be territorial imperialism. They will be looking after their jobs. Has this council got an opinion on what sort of agency or agencies you should have? What would they be like? Those to me, that's a workshop all on its own. But we felt that it's really important. The people of Christchurch are fed up with negotiations that all of a sudden happen, and I think the council would be serving its community well if it started to have, and don't be scared of differences of opinion. That's really healthy. And the Tuesday Club's about to start a series on, I've got some submissions on it at the moment, to print on what a single agency would look like. Now, I've got views on it, but others have got views that I disagree with, but that's fine. And it's important that we actually have that disagreement and arrive at some conclusions as a city. Thank you. Right on.
Central government does have the obligations in terms of the budget requirements, and they have obligations in terms of their cabinet colleagues. So they do have responsibility. So I tend not to have those conversations in the public arena until I'm really clear that I'm on all fours with the minister, as we were last week, but with our announcement.
Yeah, that's the difference between a lawyer and somebody who sees the law not as a straitjacket but as a guideline. I think that I think we've got a minister who's on side, and that's a fantastic change. And but I think that we should trust the community to actually have this conversation.
I really want a conversation. But what I'm saying is that suggesting that we hold negotiations in the public arena is actually not one that
I know that what I was suggesting is that we have a conversation.
Open discussions on the allocation of the Crown additional $300 million. It's not, we've got to wait till the Crown actually announces its budget.
Oh, I'm aware of that. But we need to actually have that conversation.
Yes, and we don't know what the limitations are going to be. So, but you know, I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying. If the Tuesday Club are going to help us have a serious conversation about how we review the multiplicity of agencies that were necessarily a compromise, then that would be incredibly helpful.
Yep.
And I'd be happy to participate.
And like, for instance, with the water and issues like that, we've got people that come there, the retired professors and people like that are really capable of producing some real good stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, look, thank you very much for making the time to come in and to present to us with both hats on. It's very much appreciated.
The Mad Hatter. Right.
And could I invite David